The phone conversation between fantasy veterans Bob Harris and Matt Waldman is a quick and dirty rundown of players, units, or teams from Sunday's games. Feel it or fuck it is our instant verdict on the fantasy value of a player or situation, not the ability, effort, or character of the player. This is just how two old-timers in this industry talk when they got a lot to cover in a little time.
Good morning, Matt Waldman. How are you feeling after the first Sunday without any football-related activities? Because I'm not counting the football-related activities that were ongoing as football-related activities.
I think that makes sense. I don't know. I'm doing pretty well. I guess I gotta say. So, but let's talk about someone who seems to be curtailing for football-related activities in terms of getting hit and throwing passes. Well, he might be throwing passes now that he's single, but I don't know if he's getting hit. Hit on. And that's Tom Brady. Yeah. Is he staying retired?
I'm feeling that. Which could always change, I suppose, as we get into the process a little bit. But this seems like the real deal, right? I don't know why he would do it twice and come back. At some point, you start looking like a schmuck. And I don't think Tom Brady, that's on his list of his to-do list. So feeling it for right now. And not honestly, I'm not expecting it to change.
Yeah, I'm feeling it too. I think that he's been a little, a little more candid about some of the things going on in football and how he felt about it in this conversation. So in this, kind of series of conversations about his retirement this time. So I think that makes sense. And seriously, I mean, I'm just on a side note. I don't care whether these guys look stupid or not, or whether they're, because I think it's that these guys are so competitive. They're built differently. So yeah, I think you're doing pretty good if you retire twice. To be honest,
it's right. It is funny because you mentioned that, but I think the same thing about when I think about negotiations between players and agents, or like the players union. I mean, the players aren't the kind of people who say, okay, I'll settle, right? I mean, I'm going to come smash you in the mouth, knock you down, step on you, and then we'll talk about it some more.
And I'm with you. Everyone keeps telling me that I can't do it throughout my entire career, that the odds are in some way, either you're not good enough or the odds are unlikely, or, it's unlikely this will ever happen again. And they spend their lives proving people wrong. I mean, I will say,
I heard, just happened to be floating through my Twitter timeline there, Mel Kiper's draft day assessment when the pick was made, and it was pretty good assessment. I mean, he had it nailed pretty good, just that he'd be a good fit, had the things he does well nailed down really well, the things he didn't do well nailed down as well. I thought it was pretty good assessment.
Yeah, Russ Landy had probably one of the highest assessments of Tom Brady at that time. I think he had him as a third round grade. So Russ, credit to Russ and to Mel Kiper for sure. So how about Sean Payton in Denver? You feeling that?
I guess, as much as Denver is, right? I mean, he was not the third option. And I'll shade that to acknowledge. I mean, I think he would have been the first option easily had there not been the costs associated, not just in terms of draft picks that you got to send back to the Saints, but he was expensive too. He's making $18 million a year.
Walmart's not gonna stop being Walmart.
Right. Well, and so they did, and to their credit, I mean, I think DeMeco Ryan seems like a guy, talk to Aaron Wilson, who covers the Texans closely, and he's super high on DeMeco Ryans. And I guess he's a really good people person and has real good energy. And so I see why Denver maybe, was focused on him. And then maybe talk to Jim Harbaugh just to see before they put the outlay for Sean Payton. But now that he's there, I'm kind of feeling it a little bit. I mean, he's been a pretty successful coach over the course of time, and we've seen other coaches swap teams and have a great deal of success. I'm looking at you, Bill Parcells, among others. I mean, it's not like it never happens. So, I think I'm feeling it a little bit.
I'm totally feeling Sean Payton in Denver, and I think that, like you said, it's the cost-related thing. They wanted to go the cheap, young, unproven guy who was the hot name that ESPN would talk about, so that therefore, the owners would pay attention to that, because that's how much they know is basically whatever they watch on ESPN. In terms of who the hot guy is, because if they came up with somebody who might have been an awesome coaching whiz and great people person out of Youngstown State, it probably wouldn't have happened. But even if like everybody at a coaching clinic would tell you that he was awesome. So Payton is obviously the third choice, but not based on ability, but based on cost. So
would have been the first, I think, had he not had this cost associated.
So with the that kind of transitions to our next topic, which I'll just begin and say I'm totally feeling the Russell Wilson rebound. I was before, but only because when I scouted Russell Wilson, I thought let him be in a system in the way that Sean Payton created a system for Drew Brees to allow him, with different types of drops and drop styles to create open lanes to throw through, to do a lot of different types of work with movement, and to be able to really cater an offense towards a certain style of player. And I think Russell Wilson always, to me, had a good comp with Drew Brees in terms of the style of player. Just a little bit more mobile, maybe not quite as good as Brees in the pocket and certain types of reads. But Wilson is a fine player, and I think that with a healthier team around him, he easily can have a rebound. How about you?
You hit on all the high points, and I think it's, teams don't make excuses based on injuries, but they easily could have, especially along the offensive line was an issue, and Javonte Williams, obviously, and on defense as well. So lots of that. Poor, game management by the incoming head coach, I think cost them, a little bit. I don't know that explains, the horrible play of Russell Wilson at times, but,
Sure.
He has a long history of great play. Sean Payton has a long history of great coaching. If I'm catching a discount on Russell Wilson, I will gladly be reaping the benefits.
Yeah, same here. I think
and taking my chances. Like, it's got to be late enough so that then when I have to move on, when last year's Russell Wilson is reappears, that I can do that. But I think that's what you'll pay. I don't think you'll have to pay serious freight there.
No, I don't think you will either. He's a dented can in dynasty leagues too, so I would take a chance on him there. Tee Higgins, is he a wide receiver one for another team if traded?
Yeah, if traded. We'll see what his demands are. I know that's the scuttlebutt is, if he makes a huge demand, I don't know who's sending this message, whether this is the brushback to say don't ask for a huge contract or maybe his side saying, hey, we want a huge contract or, be willing to trade us. But we've seen this is kind of the approach teams are taking. They're either, there are teams that are willing to pay up for the receiving talent. Look, they know they're going to have to pay Jamar Chase at some point soon. They know they're fixing to pay Joe Burrow. They just got a new stadium rights deal last year for the first time ever for the Bengals. Not notoriously big spenders, so it could actually happen. And so if it does, yes, you could be a wide receiver one on another team easily.
Yeah, I think Tee Higgins is kind of in that Melvin Gordon range of what wide receivers are to running backs, where Melvin Gordon, when he was having near elite or elite level production with the Chargers and then demanded his contract and it didn't happen. And you could say that maybe Melvin Gordon thought that he was a little better than what the NFL thought he was. I actually am going to say fuck that. Tee Higgins is not a wide receiver one for another team, but it's so close that I look at it this way. In the right scheme, he's like Mike Williams to Keenan Allen in that sense. He's been that way right now with Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is the better overall receiver. Tee Higgins is an excellent starting receiver in the league. I just don't think he's the guy that you match up on timing routes one-on-one and ask him to break back to the quarterback or break across the field against the top cornerback with certain types of routes. He's more of a go-up-and-get-it receiver who can run double moves. He can run boundary routes. There's a lot of things he can do like a wide receiver one, but he can't do everything that way. So he's going to need another player.
Let's put a finer point on it. Is somebody out there going to be willing to pay him, if this is the case, $25 million a year, the going rate for wide receiver ones?
I don't think so, and I think Twitter's going to be in an uproar about it. They're going to be like, they're going to do all the analytics, and they're going to sit there and talk about all the things with modeling that doesn't quite fit. It overfits the situation, and they're going to be talking about how Tee Higgins is getting screwed by an NFL team, when he's in reality, I think that he's probably asking for a little much. He's that, but it's that close.
If any of this is true, right? Also, Twitter being in an uproar, feeling or fucking it. Oh, I feel it every single minute that I'm on Twitter. So there you have that.
There you go. Perfect. Zach Wilson developing into a starter from a backup, say a la Geno Smith. That's the nice little PR part that the Jets are saying right now. Are you feeling that idea?
I don't think the Jets are actually feeling that idea.
Yeah,
Probably not, but I probably wouldn't have felt it about Geno Smith. Stranger things have happened. I mean, this is starting to look like the Josh Rosen redux here. I mean, it's starting to have that feeling, and it seems like this kid can throw the football, and that's apparently only part of the job requirement of an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, I think Steve Smith says it really well, and it's something that kind of echoes what the RSP talks about a lot, which is, the best quarterbacks have really high processors, really fast processors. And Zach Wilson just never really had a fast processor when it came to the game. Everything from the neck down was great, and he's probably a smart guy, but it's a different type of intelligence that you have to have as a quarterback. And so he can diagram things all he wants, but at the same time, can he respond, react and respond quickly to what's going on? Geno always had that bit of a processor. He had a higher grade for me than Zach Wilson did. I'm not buying it. I think fuck it, in the same way that Josh Rosen probably in terms of his behavior was more of a driving force than it was what he could do between the ears and with his arm. Mike Gesicki, is he a fantasy tight end one elsewhere, like a top 12 tight end?
More feeling it than fucking it, and that's going to depend on the landing spot. If he lands in San Francisco, but I mean, it seems like he was not a good scheme fit, as the kids would say. And every opportunity he gets to make an acrobatic catch or a highlight reel play, he seems to make it. So I think somebody will give him an opportunity to do that, and maybe give him ample opportunities to do that in an offense where, like let's say, I don't know, Detroit, right, where they have TJ Hawkinson, a super high value play for them that had 3 touchdown catches last year. When he left, they cobbled together 9 touchdown catches with a ragtag assemblage of nobodies. All due respect to those nobodies, they seem like nice people. And I don't know that he's a great fit for that offense, but I mean, I think there are places that make better use of the tight end or his skills than Mike McDaniel.
Yeah, I'd say that's in a zone, in an offense where you can create a lot of zone looks, where you're running routes against zone. Mike Gesicki can be a tight end one elsewhere. If he's going to be expected to win one-on-one or win from an inline position rather than a 2-point stance, then fuck that.
Exactly.
So I think that's the 2 spots there. Joshua Kelley, Kellen Moore, who jumped ship to the Chargers, said Joshua Kelley at the end of the year, watching the tape, he looks like someone that we could be developing things for to really kind of do more with him in 2023. Do you think he grows into a co-starter role during his career with Austin, or even maybe this year with Austin Ekeler? I know those are 2 different questions. So feeling which one, fucking which one.
I don't have my 2020 RSP opened at the moment to the page that prominently features Joshua Kelley, but I can tell you that it says that I should be feeling this. The skills are there. I don't know. To me, I mean, they drafted another guy last year in Isaiah Spiller, who was like the 3rd running back on most people's lists. So color me skeptical. The Chargers have taken 3 swings at this. I'm going to include Larry Roundtree, the 3rd, in the mix there, and have come up short, and probably wish they had Justin Jackson back. So not necessarily feeling it, but open to it.
Yeah, I'd say I'm in agreement with that. I like what Josh Kelley has steadily improved over his career, but he didn't start as strong as I hoped that he would, and the Chargers got impatient, and then he's now kind of said, hey, wait a minute, hold the phone. So, but I agree, Isaiah Spiller, I was going to say Fred Spiller, I was going to go through all the Spillers, but Isaiah Spiller certainly has talent, but I would say that he's a lot closer to Joshua Kelley in ability than what people thought. Cam Akers, I don't think by the year's end, I don't think there was any doubt that he looked back, especially with that ragtag offensive line and no quarterback in LA. Is he a top 12 fantasy running back in 2023? You feeling that?
He was a league winner. I don't think you'll have to pay that freight. I think people remain skeptical of this, and I hope to leverage that. I'm feeling that possibility. We thought he was that going into last season, or I'll say early best balls. I saw him going the first round in some drafts. I always thought that was too high. That said, what we saw down the stretch with the issue you mentioned, the offensive line, there was almost he was the only thing working in that offense. Maybe slightly Tyler Higbee. So yeah, I'm kind of feeling the possibility of that, but mostly because I think we'll be able to get him at a little cheaper price.
I'm totally feeling it, and I'm laughing because I've seen some analysis. People say, well, they should give him more wide zone runs. And I think, well, what's funny is that when he was at FSU, where he started was on gap plays, and the NFL's going to more and more gap plays. So if you let Cam Akers run gap, you're letting him play to his strengths. Wide zone's nice. He's gotten better at that. He's actually gotten quite good at it. So you can have him do both, but you don't need to say, well, we need to have him do that. That to me is someone who hasn't studied the game and kept up with him at this stage, because Cam Akers is the thing they need to do more of with him is throw him the football, because he has excellent hands, and and let him, really give him responsibilities as a route runner. He could develop into really a top 5 back if everything falls into place. So let's round this out with the NFL segment with this. Steve Smith, I saw on a podcast, he was asked to give his top 5 receivers in the NFL 3 months ago. So it was in the past 3 months that he said this. And he said Odell Beckham Jr. is still one of his top 5 receivers in the NFL in terms of ability. You feeling that?
3 things. Steve Smith often says a lot of crazy things that I say fuck it too. 2, I will speak for everyone who's ever been forced to leave an aircraft because someone was acting like a jerk. Fuck that. Also, speaking as someone who plays fantasy football and tries to pretend he's an NFL personnel person, I would say fuck that as well. I don't think so.
There you go. Well, I'll say this. I'm a big fan of Steve Smith as a player and an assessment of other players. I definitely think that he understands wide receiver play. And if healthy enough, I would agree that Odell Beckham Jr. is still one of the better route runners in the league and still catches the ball extremely well and has after the catch skills. But I just wonder if his knee's healthy enough to go. So I'm going to say fuck that, but with the idea that I'm feeling Steve Smith when it comes to his analysis of football players.
I should caveat. He says a lot of crazy things that I say fuck it too. But he says a lot of things that I don't, and he's one of the best interviews I've ever had. So kudos to him. If you sit down and talk to Steve Smith for like an hour, you hear a lot of really cool stuff.
Yeah, Steve. Yeah, and I'll say this, Steve Smith. One of the things I did love about Steve Smith are some of the things that are crazy that I remember early on is tuning into the combine for like 5 minutes and hearing them talk about some wide receiver who's no longer in the league, I believe. And they had Steve Smith on watching and Cooper Kupp's on during the whole time where the other guy's running his mouth. And Steve Smith finally had had enough of this and goes, can we stop talking about this guy and talk about the guy that's on the screen right now? Because he might be the best route runner in this class. And I just wanted to hug Steve Smith at that moment, because it was Cooper Kupp.
He's not averse to grabbing attention with some of his comments. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, we'll put it that way. So let's move on to the NFL draft.
Allow me the draft portion of our program. What Anthony Richardson, polarizing character, Matt? Is he polarizing because of public perception fueled by the what or the why?
Yeah, I think it's fueled by the what. Because every time I post something about when I've posted something about Anthony Richardson, I've done a deep dive on him on YouTube that just kind of talks about how good he is in the pocket with his movement, his management of pressure, and how well he does, even in those situations, manipulating defenders in the secondary to create open looks for his receivers and placing the ball in really awesome really showing awesome placement with all of that going on, which kind of defies the idea of him being this kind of raw athlete who runs really well with a big arm, who just has so much to learn about reading coverages and making good decisions, and that he makes these really bad decisions. So, watching other players, and I'm going to go back and watch some more Richardson as well as the other quarterbacks before I put out the RSP, but I've watched I've probably watched 2/3 of what I'm going to watch with every quarterback thus far. But I've gone back and watching other players, and I've seen Richardson in some tape from 2021 where people, where I can see where that narrative came from, where he's thrown untimely interceptions. And the thing is that when I watch those plays, the what is he made a bad decision. He threw an interception, and it looks like a throw that he shouldn't have made at all. But then when I look at the why he made that throw, it totally is okay with me. Like, it's usually a down and distance situation where he's under pressure. He thought he could get away with the throw because he has a big arm, and the ball came up short, and it looked worse than what it really was. And to me, what happens is people see enough of those trying to be a hero plays, and they say he's an awful decision maker. He can't see coverage. And it's like, no, he saw the coverage. He took the chance in the same way that Matthew Stafford or Patrick Mahomes or a lot of big arm quarterbacks see the right things. They thought they could get the ball there and just didn't. That's different than, say, Zach Wilson, who doesn't see the coverage and tries to get the ball there because he thinks that he thinks that he can, or he sees the coverage and it's not read well and there's no reason why he should have thrown it. And whereas with Anthony Richardson, it's more about, can I get the ball there far enough? And if I can get it far enough there, I'm going to place it where the defender has no chance to get it. Whereas with Wilson, it's kind of like, I know the defender can get there based on this look. I should know that, but I'm going to try and beat him there anyway.
Is the oversimplified version of this lack of experience and accuracy?
It's that's the oversimplified version of what people are thinking, when it's actually lack of, that he hasn't had a lot of experience, and his accuracy is good, but his decisions to try and make throws with people hanging off of him in situations where he's just trying to be a hero. There's a difference between trying to be a hero and thinking that you can make every throw. And I know that sounds similar, but it's not. It's, Matt, there's times where you try and push the limits of your athletic ability, and because you've been able to, and then there's times where you think, I can win, I can place this ball anywhere I want to, so
you're my hero, Matt Waldman. I'm going to move on. The tight end class, 2023 tight end class, is deep and has great fantasy value in the future.
I'm feeling this. It's a very deep class, and I think that there is a better prospect than Kyle Pitts in this class. And I think that he's not. It's very close, but when it comes to landing spot, I think Dalton Kincaid out of Utah could wind up having the first season that Kyle Pitts had, but with more touchdowns. I think he's that good, and I think the Travis Kelce comparisons could be fitting for him. And I think there's a number of players in this class who may not have that kind of first year, but we could see some Pat Freiermuth type of play from some of these guys. There's a good 8 to 10 tight ends in this class who in 3 to 5 years could be starting in the league. They may not be fantasy starters, but they may be fantasy plays depending on the week. And I think there's 4 to 6 players who could be fantasy starters. That's a strong class.
Dalton Kincaid, no relation to Ruben, the great manager of the Partridge Family. The buzzworthy guy out of the Senior Bowl, Tyjae Spears, hard cutting style, coming off torn ACL. Is that a bad combination?
It is it sounds like a bad combination, but really his hard cutting style is an ACL tear. Listen, there are 8 running backs I listed yesterday who had that combination of a hard cutting style and a past ACL injury, and 6 of them are in the top 25 all time in NFL rushing attempts. So really it's about body alignment and how serious the injury was, and based on what he looked like after the injury, I don't think this should be anything that makes him a bigger risk than any other running back. I think you should stay high on him.
So fuck that.
Yeah.
What I just said. Michael Wilson is the best route runner in this wide receiver class. Feel it or fuck it.
I'm totally feeling that. I thought back in November I finished watching him, and if he's not there, he's very close. There's a lot of Juju Smith-Schuster and Michael Thomas to the way that he runs routes. Very explosive in the short area, really understands how to manipulate his pacing, sharp breaks, good off the line of scrimmage to be able to win against press. He just doesn't have great deep speed. But to me, he can be that guy who can be that hybrid who plays inside, outside, both usually as a flanker or a slot, and occasionally you can line him up for play action at the X position. The big question for him is injuries. He missed 11 months with a foot injury, and then he had another injury after a nice 3-game run for Stanford. And but he looked great in the Senior Bowl. And yeah, the Senior Bowl sometimes overplays certain things, but a lot of things that he looked good doing were things that he looked good on tape.
All right, the running back class in general is going to be both a fantasy dream and a fantasy nightmare. Feel that or fuck it.
Yeah, all in one. And the reason is that there's a good bit of talent in this class, but also there are enough guys in this class who could thrive in a gap scheme. And because the NFL's gone more towards gap schemes are easier for running backs to run for the most part. There are some exceptions with certain styles of play where maybe they just don't fit well in a gap scheme. But when you only have to make one decision and manipulate that one area and hit it hard and fast, a lot of running backs can do that. So there's guys who are going to be graded lower who might end up getting an opportunity on a team due to an injury and thriving well enough that everybody's going to go, well, everybody had those guys rated outside their top 10 or top 15 or even in their, in the top 20, 25. And nobody knew where this guy was coming from. How come everybody's missing on these guys and these other guys are sitting on the bench? That's what's going to happen the next, 1 to 2 years with this running back class based on how the NFL's going offensively. So
fair enough.
Yeah. So let's do a quick round here just of some stuff that just are kind of non-football stuff. I'm just curious. All right. Feeling or fucking it. We're going to do the food edition right now. Breakfast burritos.
I feel that. I mean, I've been feeling that for many years, coming from the southwestern part of this country, Tucson, Arizona. And by the way, in Tucson, Arizona, the best breakfast burro ever was the egg and sausage burro at Whataburger. They made them so good there, and I'm an admitted addict. No cheese, please.
I passed a Whataburger yesterday. I may have to check that out one day. So I don't have a real good I don't have a good answer for that one because I don't live in Tucson, Arizona. Though where I live has enough of a population of folks who do make burritos well. I just haven't been out to really check it out. So
let me just say, as someone who's lived in Arizona, where the Sonoran style Mexican food lives, Albuquerque, where the New Mexican style, obviously the more green red chili based, and now Dallas, where they do the Tex-Mex thing. Tucson, the Sonoran Mexican food is where you want to be, people. I'm just saying.
See, I love that. An informed opinion. Look at that. Cold pizza. You feel that?
Oh, I feel pizza. Any pizza. I don't care what it is. Yeah, feel that totally.
Yeah, totally feeling that. Especially oatmeal. Underrated?
I'm ambivalent. I'm totally. I mean, it probably is underrated. It's it's a hearty meal. When prepared properly and quite delicious if you do it right as well. So I'll go with underrated, but don't necessarily do a lot of the oatmeal myself.
Totally feeling it. I do a fair bit of oatmeal, so I'll say it's totally underrated. Celery.
Oh, feel that, man. There's no better vehicle for, like, not all of us can sit down and eat chips all day, people. I like to still fit through the door. So the celery is the perfect vehicle, the 0-calorie vehicle for whatever dip you might like, whether it's hummus, salsa, anything beyond you can use with celery. By itself,
yeah, by itself, yeah. And cooking with it is good. It does add a layer of flavor that's really nice. And yes, the vehicle for delivery is good too. Though, I love people who use that and they pile onto the vehicle like basically like a college prank on a double-decker bus or, and say, well, when you eat the celery, you expend more calories to eat it than it actually is. Well, that's true if you don't have 5 pounds of peanut butter on it, but that's a different story. Ginger.
Sure. I love ginger. I use it often in cooking. Also, don't drink the alcohol, as you well know, Matt Waldman. But the ginger beer is quite tasty and has a little zip to it. So someone made me drink some of that once, and it was delicious.
Yeah, I'm a ginger beer fan. I'm a ginger fan. And when I'm sick, ginger, lemon, and honey and hot water, that's my pharmaceutical, honestly.
Right.
And I drink tons of that, and usually by day 2 I'm feeling better. Cheese.
Fuck that. I don't need any cheese on anything. For many years, as I've matured, my palate has matured with me. So I can eat the milder cheeses. But as a youngster, I wanted my pizza with no cheese. I didn't have anything to do with cheese. And still, the sharper cheeses, not for me, Bob Harris. Fuck that.
Daniel Simpkins, did you hear that? Did you hear that? It's not just me who said fuck it to cheese. Though I gotta say, I do like hard cheeses. I like a good Gouda or a Swiss, and I'll have a little bit of hard cheese every once in a while. But as melted cheese, creamy white substances, not a big fan of myself. That's just not my deal. So yep, fuck it. But hey, thanks again. Always a pleasure to get a chance to chat with you, Bob, and I'm sure I'll talk with you sometime next week.
We'll do it again next week. Love you. Goodbye.
Love you. Bye.